all going to be celebrating and teaching and giving back some wonderful information that is going to help you have a better life. I'm so excited to have our guest on today. This is Collette Larsen. Collette and I have known each other for many, many years. Dang, Collette, almost half my life.
I know. When did we meet? It must have been in like the mid 80s, probably, when we moved to California. I mean, it's been a long, long time ago, Tom.
I hate to say it, but I've known you longer than I haven't.
That's true.
So I've known Collette for many, many years, and we've been dear, dear friends. I met Collette in my 20s. We built a wonderful educational company together with Robert Allen. We taught people from all over about finances, and Collette has been such a huge part of that and making a difference in people's lives. And then I'll tell you about how my story was, is that as many of you know, when I was 34 years of age, I had a heart attack. And as they were rolling me into the operating room, I wondered if I was coming back. 1/3 of the people who have a heart attack die. They're just gone. And I was lucky. For some reason, I was given the chance to stay here and be here. And I remember looking over at my wife as they were rolling me into the operating room and wondering if I was coming back. And if I didn't come back, who's going to take care of my 2 special needs children? Because my special needs children at the time, they were very young. They were like 3 to 4 years of age. And I knew that we had a problem, and I had to find a way to be able to create streams of income. So the things that we're teaching you is not some pie in the sky stuff. This is our story. We have some people say, you have such a wonderful story. It's an inspirational story. And I say, it's a great story. I just wish it wasn't mine. I wish I could have just read the book or sent me the memo. But Collette did something for me that has changed my life. That really changed my life. She came over to our house, and she was very concerned at what happened, and says, "I've got some nutritional products for you that I want to get you started on. These are great products." And this was her high-tech clothes to get started. She says, "Do you have a blender?" Yes, I do. And she opens up this great little product that you put in a blender. We threw in some fruit in it and created a smoothie. So right there, we just started working on my health. And so I've been so grateful for her for making that difference in my life. And then she introduced me to the concept of network marketing. Now, as you know, one of the things we teach is that you need to make more money. All of you need to make more money, and there's a lot of ways that you can do that. 5 steps are very simple. 1, make more money. You do that by solving problems, adding value, and learning from successful people. Number 2 is you separate it. 3, you got to give some of it away. I don't care where you give it. You just need to give some of it away. Number 4 is you automatically invest. This is the crucial part. You have to automatically invest. In every adult that I've ever talked to, I says, if there's one thing that you could fix with your finances, what it would be? And they always say, I would have started earlier. That's why we do what we do. That's why we're so hardcore on getting these investment accounts open, because it just will change your life. And then number 5 is to save and spend. But the real key is the wealth formula. The wealth formula is that you need to do this on a weekly, monthly basis. As you make money, that money needs to go into your long-term investments. Time's time. This isn't an overnight thing. We want to build a foundation, a financial foundation. So as you build your house on top of it, it's not going to crack and it's not going to sink. So we want to do this over a period of time. We're growing a whole orchard of money trees and then have it go up in value. Now, one of the ways that you need to do that is you all need a side hustle. And there's all kinds of side hustles. Now, what I did was I got involved with Collette with network marketing because I love the products. And I'm still on the products. And I've been on the products for, 30 years now. And I still take the products. I'm not actively doing the business because I had other interests that I wanted to do. But what's so amazing is that together, Collette and I, we started working together. And I got to be honest with you, I failed miserably twice. I gave up. It just crashed and I couldn't do it. And it just crashed. And then the third time, I literally said to Collette, if I don't make it work this time, I will never, ever, ever speak to you again the rest of my life.
That's true. Well, we're here, we're speaking, so it must have worked.
So I was so flustered because I didn't make it work the first two times, and then the third time we made it work, and I was in just, you know, that I'll never talk to her again. But she had found a system, and it worked for her. I just had to follow her system, and we did that, and we enrolled a lot of people. Now we're going to talk a little bit about small business in another section. And so I'm going to save some of those pieces for that next section. But what I really want to do in this first section is I really want to spend a little bit of quality time with Collette and have her tell you her story. You know, we have a lot of women that are in our group. We have more women in the foundation than we do with men. And we have our biggest segment is the 22 to 35-year-old, and many of you are single. Our goal is to bring empowering women into the program so you have a role model that you can be after. So I'm going to jump out of the way for just a second, and I'm going to have Collette come on and start telling you about her story. Collette, welcome to the Success and Money Live.
Thank you so much, Tom. Is my audio okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're great.
Okay. And Tom, like I said earlier, feel free to jump in at any time. I'm just gonna, Tom sent me you know, I've given a lot of lectures. I haven't done Zoom like this, so this is a new thing to me, and I actually prefer interactions. So if you have questions you want to put in the chat, Tom can ask me things, but I am so honored. And Tom just said, Collette, just look at that little green dot at the top of your laptop and pretend like you're sitting across the kitchen table and just speak from your heart like you do. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do today. I wish you were all right here. I'm at our little, we have a home up in Lake Tahoe. I know many of you are international. You might not know where Lake Tahoe is, but Lake Tahoe is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And we're right here on the lake. I call it my little nest. It's just a little cabin kind of up here. And I'm grateful that my internet is working because it doesn't always. So thank you, Tom, for this invitation. I'm delighted to be able to share my story with all of you. You know, several years ago, I got a book called The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch, and he was a beloved teacher. You know, I think he was at Harvard or Stanford. Anyway, he did this thing called The Last Lecture because he knew that he only had a few weeks left to live. And one of the things he said, I want to share his quote with you. He said, "Don't tell people how to live their lives. Simply share your story, and they will pull out from your story things that they can apply to their lives." So I realize today we're talking about side hustles, and there's so many different things to do in this gig economy. I happen to have made my wealth through network marketing, and I know that's not everyone's jam. It just happened to be the thing that worked for me. So I hope that as I share this, you can use these success principles, these leadership principles, and apply them to whatever you're doing. I want to go back before Tom got on when we were just all visiting. He talked about, by the way, Tom, it was so wonderful to see that slide with your mom and dad. I recognize them. And
Yeah.
you mentioned my dad. Now, my parents have both passed. My dad several years ago, and my mother last year. But Tom mentioned my dad, a story that my brothers would tell. And we did. I am the oldest of 10 children. My mother had 10 children in 14 years. So almost a baby a year, if you can believe that. I was 6 when she had her 6th child. I mean, just one a year. I honestly don't know how she did it. I had 5. I can't imagine having 10. But we had this acre lot, and we had a half-acre garden. And oh my goodness, my dad really did work us. And as Tom said, my brother had done the math on growing all these tomatoes, because we would can tomatoes. And by the time we bought the seeds and planted in the water, and he figured out per hour how many hours we were putting in weeding. And as Tom shared with some of you that were on, you know, my brother went to my dad and said, "This just does not make financial sense. We could buy these tomatoes for less than it's costing us to grow them." And my dad said, "You know what? Something you don't understand is that I'm not growing tomatoes. I'm not raising tomatoes." He said, "I'm raising children." So that's your first principle that you talked about, Tom, learning to work hard. And I'm so grateful for my upbringing. We worked hard. So when I was put in a situation where I had to put that principle to work in my own life as a single mother, I had that to fall back on, and I'm so grateful for that. And Tom, I know that your parents taught you that same principle. And as I saw their picture, I remember meeting them and just how there. Tom, didn't you have? Were there how many kids in your family?
There was 10, but I was number
Yeah.
7.
Yeah, I thought we had the same. Now I have 7 brothers and 2 sisters. Tom, you said that my brothers were out there working in the garden. Let me correct that. All 10 of us worked in that garden. The girls worked just as hard as my brothers did. But that was a principle that I am so grateful for. Well, Tom mentioned to me that many of you on here today are women. Many of you are single women. So although the men that are on here, the young men, the old, whatever, I hope you can pull from my story things that can help you. But I specifically want to talk to you women that are out there, because maybe there are a few women out there. Maybe you are single. Maybe you're a single mother. Maybe you're a single mother without any, formal education, no references, no money in the bank, no experience. Not sure what you're going to do. That is where I found myself, in a very, very difficult situation where I knew that I needed to fall back on those principles that I had learned as a girl. And I knew that I had to figure out some way to support my children. Years ago, I love J.K. Rowling and all her books. And I remember a quote I read. I was reading an article about her life, and she talked about hitting rock bottom, and that hitting rock bottom was the best thing that could have happened to her, because it allowed her to build on a very solid foundation. So if you are feeling like I was, again, single mother, maybe with some children, you are the primary breadwinner in your home, you've got to figure out a way to support your children, and maybe you don't have a college or a higher education. Maybe you don't have references and not very much experience. I didn't have any work experience. I want you to take heart, because that woman way back in the early 90s, that scared, frightened, not sure what she was going to do, that woman was me. And like J.K. Rowling, I had hit rock bottom. I don't know how much I want to go into about this, but I'd been married for 21 years. All I'd done is raise children. I had 5 children. My 2 youngest daughters were born with a terminal disease called cystic fibrosis, and they were very, very sick. Well, what do I say about this, Tom? Let me just say, when your husband's secretary ends up pregnant, you know that you're on your own. And so I suddenly, after 21 years of marriage, found myself a single mother of 5 children, 2 who were very, very sick, and not having any idea what I was going to do to support myself and my children. And my ex-husband at this point was gone. He was out of the picture. So let me take you back to August of 1993. Actually, I'll take you back a little earlier than that. One of my 7 brothers had been telling me he'd gotten involved with this company called USANA. Now, Tom told me I could talk to you about network marketing, but I have to tell you the truth. He said, if you're going to talk about direct sales or network marketing, multi-level marketing, whatever you want to call it. And I realize as I'm talking to you that there's some stigma around that. I've dealt with that for 30 years, and that's okay with me. This brother of mine just kept talking about the science behind these products. And then, of course, when I ended up single and desperate, he kept after me about this company. So I'm going to take you to this night. But I should tell you that every time he would bring it up, because he got involved way back in 1992. And from the very beginning, he was telling him about this scientist, about these products, and how he thought they might help my kids, and blah, blah, blah. Just every time I'd see him, he'd go on and on about this company. But honestly, again, the stigma that was attached, the fact that I was so busy, 5 children, my 2 youngest daughters needed hours of daily therapy to try to keep their lungs clear. I won't go too much into CF, but it's a terminal lung disease, very serious. And I just thought, there's no way. I don't have any experience. I can't do this. Well, my daughter, Lexi, my youngest daughter, had a double lung transplant. She finally got to the point where, in order to save her life, she had to have a double lung transplant. her body rejected her new lungs. It was perfect for a few days, and then she went into rejection, and they put her into a medically induced coma. And she was in intensive care in San Diego, where we lived, for 3 months on life-saving, machines were keeping her alive. And I was spending 16 to 20 hours a day at her bedside. My daughter, Charlie, who was just a year older than Lexi. So Lexi was 14, Charlie was 15. They both had cystic fibrosis. Lexi was the most sick, the one who needed the transplant at that time. But Charlie, they were so close. They were twins, basically. Not really, but like twins. They were inseparable. They would sleep together. I would often go in their bed and even to tuck them in, and they were holding hands. I still can't say. You'd think after all these years I could talk about them, but I would go in and see them holding hands. I can't say Charlie without saying Charlie and Lexi. And Lexi is no longer with us on this in mortality. I still feel like she's with me. But anyway, so she was in this coma. I had recently gotten a letter from the hospital. I had no money. I was tens of thousands, eventually hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Because if you have a child that has a double lung transplant and ends up in intensive care for 3 months, they quit billing me. They put a stopgap measure in at $1 million. And at the time, I was working as a secretary for Robert Allen. Many of you know him. And this kind of embarrassed Bob, but he was paying me, I think it was $7.50 an hour back then. That was actually pretty good back then, but certainly not enough to support 5 children. Well, so let me take you to this hot August night. This brother calls me. I'd just gotten home from the hospital. It was very late at night. And, I was the only family member that lived in California, but this brother called me. I had a conversation with my parents, telling them that I thought I was going to need to take out bankruptcy. I thought. I actually never did, but I came very close. So I told them this, and they must have said something to this brother, because he called me. And once again, he launched into this, Collette, you need to do this. You love people. And he said, if there's anything you love, if you go to a movie and you love it, you tell everyone about it. You have a stylist, you go to a salon that you like, you tell everyone about it. I'm still that way. I'm very passionate about things I enjoy, things I love. I'm a podcast junkie, by the way, Tom. I don't know how to do Zoom very well, but I listen to probably 3 or 4 podcasts every single day. And I'm always sending, on WhatsApp, I've got different groups. And just yesterday, I sent this, you've all got to listen to this podcast. I'm still very much that way. And Dallin knew I was that way. And he said, you would be a natural at this. Anyway, at one point in that conversation, he said, Collette, I know you're destitute financially. I know. And this is the goose that laid the golden egg. Well, something about that statement, I still don't even really understand. But, sometimes we have a trigger or a pivotal point. And that the goose that laid the golden egg, something about that felt so trite to me when I literally would go home every night. And on my drive home, I would pray that my daughter would still be alive the next morning. And something about geese and golden eggs just put me over the edge. And I just started sobbing uncontrollably. This was 93. And and here I am still crying about it. But I just he couldn't console me. He was like going, what did I say? I'm sorry. And I said, no, it's okay. It's okay. But he couldn't console me. What he could do was hop on the plane the next morning. Now, he lived in Salt Lake City at the time. I know many of you are international, but he was able to take a 6 a.m. flight, fly to San Diego. He went right to the hospital, and I was already there. And he got special permission to go into my daughter's intensive care cubicle. He had to gown up, he had to scrub and wear booties and a hat and gloves and a wrap and everything in order to go in there. And it was a glass cubicle, and I stood outside and watched my brother Dallin in with her for about 15 minutes. And when he came out, now it was him that was crying, and I was trying to console him. We were hugging each other, and he just kept saying, please forgive me. Can you please forgive me? He goes, Collette, I am so, so sorry. Forget about business. Forget about building a business. He said, we're going to get Charlie on these products. He said, products that Tom was talking about. And he said, if Lexi lives, we'll get her on the products as well. So, this was what, almost 30 years ago. And I share this story with you today because I still think there's a true principle there. Now, whatever you're doing as your side hustle, as your gig, or maybe it's the company you work for, or whatever, I believe people get involved with us in our endeavors, businesses that we're starting. They get involved with us not because we have fabulous products, because I knew I had fabulous products. They don't even get involved with us because there's money to be made. I don't think. I think they actually get involved with us because they see in talking to us that we really, really care about them, that comes first. If we can build a business on the side, that's fabulous. But they want to know that we've looked into their hearts. When my brother said that to me, I knew that he cared about me way more than he cared about USANA or making money or anything else. So I accidentally got involved in network marketing. When I say accidentally, it's because a few days later, this box of products ends up on my doorstep that he wanted me to get Charlie on. And so I started her on the products. I started taking a few myself, and he actually provided the products for us for several months. That is how I got involved in USANA. And at one point, he mentioned to me, after I started noticing my energy level going up and all this, he said, you could probably make enough, just enough each month to pay for your own product if you could share this opportunity with a few people and, and help them set their intentions and their goals and help them find a few people, then you could make enough money. You could make $100 a month. And that was my first goal. I wanted to make enough money to pay for my own USANA product. Well, I'm just talking and I've got all these notes, and of course I'm leaving all of it out. I have to tell you, when Dallin approached me, I forgot to mention to you that at that time, Charlie, who was a year older than Lexi, was also starting to spiral downhill very rapidly, to the point that the doctors called an emergency meeting with me and said, we realize that Lexi might not make it. She was still in this medically induced coma, but we need to start considering putting Charlie on the double lung transplant list as well. So when I tell you that there could not have been a worse time for me to start building a business, again, single mother, my three older children were 18, 19, and 20, and that always been exactly where I wanted them, which was safely tucked under my mothering wing. But now they were living in far-flung corners of the world. My daughter Chelsea was living in Turkey as a nanny. I had a son that was serving a mission for our church down in Chile. My oldest son, Dax, honestly, I wasn't even sure where he was at the time. He was going to school and kind of skipping all over the country. So my life was in such upheaval that I felt like there couldn't have been a more inopportune time. But what I have learned, I'm going to share with you now. And I want you to think about this, particularly if you're a single mother with kids or whatever, things seem really tough. Most opportunities do come at inopportune times. They seem to come into our lives when we feel like, I can't possibly do this. But because they come at those times, they're often misinterpreted as distractions. I had no idea at that time that box ended up on my doorstep, what I was in for. It was, but I also needed something. Again, I had a high school education. I didn't have any formal education. And I did know a number of wonderful people. And honestly, I have to tell you, like Tom, I have to share a quick story about Tom. I was so destitute, and I had known Tom earlier through these business ventures. And then when my husband left, everything fell apart. And this was before I got involved in USANA. I remember going out to my mailbox one day. I don't know if you'll remember this, Tom.
Yeah, I do.
But it was one of those days when I thought, I'd even gone to the welfare office in San Diego because the social worker at the hospital said, Collette, This is what welfare is for. It's for single mothers who have hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical debt. So I went to the welfare office in San Diego and I sat there, and this was right. Lexi was in the hospital for 3 months. When she got out, she was left paralyzed from the waist down. So I had her in a wheelchair. I had Charlie on oxygen. And I'm in this welfare office and I'm watching all these sweet women go in this private door. And you had to take a number and wait. And I remember sitting there with my girls thinking, I just can't do this. I don't want this to be the model for them. Now, I do think welfare and social help can be very helpful. But for me, I just thought, I know I can figure out something. So just before my number came up, I said to my girls, let's go. And I took Lexi and wheeled her out. Well, it was right about that time I went out to my mailbox. I opened the mailbox and there was an envelope in that mailbox. And up in the corner said Tom Painter. I opened it up and there was a check for $1,000 that just said, thinking about you, my dear friend. So this is the man that you are now working with. And I just I'm going back many, many years to tell you that this is the man he's always been, just a true, really true good friend. Oh, well, anyway, okay. A few little side tangents there, Tom. Okay, so the next thing I did, as far as my story, I'm trying to keep this in order. I asked my brother, what do I do? I need to make enough money to pay. I need to make $100 a month to pay for this auto order each month to keep me active in this business. So he said, Collette, you need to form a team. You need to form this nucleus group around you, like-minded people who want to, make a little side income, multiple streams of income, we called it back then. And he says, you need to start doing meetings and give presentations. And I'm like, what? Absolutely not. I'd never spoken in front of people. I was a mother. That's what I had done. I was a mother. I wasn't even, anyway, very little self-confidence. I did go to the library. I checked. I didn't have, at that point, I was so completely broke, just trying to avoid bankruptcy. But I did have a library card, and I went to the library and I checked out every book on direct sales, network marketing that I could find. And I also then started checking out a lot of books on personal development, self-growth, and I became a student of the industry. I remember talking to Tom. This was before Tom had his heart attack and before he actually got started on the products. But I remember him saying to me, Collette, if you're going to do this, you have to become a USANA maniac. And I knew that meant I have got to figure this out. I've got to know what I'm doing. And I've got to speak with passion and conviction and commitment. People have got to know that I'm going to do this. Well, before that self-confidence built within me, I thought, you know what I could do? Because again, Lexi was home, Charlie was sick. I thought, I don't have time to do meetings or to go, but what I could do, I could find out who the leaders are in San Diego. Surely this company has leaders in San Diego that are doing meetings. And then I can call my girlfriends or friends that trust me, and I can ask them to go to that meeting and listen. And if they like what they hear, then they can sign up with me and I can start building this team. But I will rely on an expert to teach them. So I didn't know who the leaders were. So I thought, okay, I had this brilliant idea. I called the corporate office and I said, this is Collette Larsen. I'm here in San Diego. Can you give me a list of the leaders in San Diego, people that are doing, presentations here in my area? And this sweet woman in customer service rep said, I'm not sure, but I'll do some research on it and I will call you back tomorrow. So I was so excited. I kind of had this plan. Okay. Because I felt like once I got involved that I could kind of support them. I just didn't want to do the presentations. So anyway, I get a call the next day. Is this Collette? Yes, this is Collette. You're the one who called about who the leaders are in San Diego. And I said, yes, that's me. You're it. That is what she said to me. You are it. We don't have anybody doing anything in San Diego. And I will tell you, those 2 words, I am so grateful to her for those 2 words, because again, it was one of those pivotal moments that changed my life. I felt that mantle of leadership. I'm going, wait, I can't do this. I am not a businesswoman. I don't know how to sell anything. I don't know anything about leadership. I'm a great mom, apparently not even that great of a wife. I just, again, the self-esteem thing. But for her to say, you're it, then that's when I kicked in and I went, okay, I have got to figure this out. And in one of the books that I'd read, it talked about speaking with conviction and passion and all of those things. Well, you saw in a second, I actually just gotten my first check. I signed up a couple people, some friends, some family members. I'd gotten my first check, which was $100, right before my auto order was due that month. Well, the next month, USANA's second annual convention was being held in Las Vegas, Nevada. And my brother had told me, that leaders go to events and they take their teams with them. So I thought, okay, so 3 of my girlfriends who were currently taking the product, none of them really wanted to build a business, but they did sign up in order to get the products at wholesale. So I talked them into going to Las Vegas with me because, frankly, there was 4 of us. We were going to share one room with 2 beds. It was going to be $20 each because I was down to fumes, basically living on my credit cards. But I packed food in a cooler. We drove. And I went to my first convention. I remember walking in so proud, wearing my green believer pin. That meant made your first check. I was so excited about that. And that evening, the founder of our company was going to speak, and I was so excited for my girlfriends to hear him because I thought if they hear him, they're going to be so excited about this too. They'd only been in a couple weeks, but they left. Those of you that aren't in the US, you might not remember Siegfried and Roy or know who I'm talking about. It was this great Las Vegas show, and it was playing that night. So my 3 girlfriends went to that show, and I stayed at this convention and I listened. And another pivotal event happened to me that night because USANA was only a couple years old, but they proceeded to introduce the top distributor in the company. His name was Sterling Otteson, become a dear friend of mine. But he, I'd never met him before. And this guy comes out on stage and, he was dressed kind of casually. He seemed very kind and nice, but he didn't seem like really slick or brilliant or anything like that. And there was 2 things I remembered. I'm sitting in the audience watching him, knowing he's the top earning distributor in the company. And a couple things he said. One, he gave us these tips to build our business. And he said, have business cards made and leave them on the backs of urinals. And I'm sitting in the audience going, okay, he obviously doesn't think there's any women in the audience. I don't know if you all know, in the United States, there's the men's restrooms and the women's, and the men's have urinals, women's do not. And so I'm going, okay, that's going to be a hard no for me. But then Sterling took out this Energizer bunny. Now, again, you'll recognize this probably if you're from Canada or the US, but there used to be this old commercial where it was the Energizer bunny, and they'd wind up this bunny, and Sterling brought a bunny out on stage, and he wound it up and he put it down, and the bunny was going all over the stage. It would bump into his leg, then it would turn and just keep going. And at one point, everyone's laughing, and he goes, there's a point here, there's a point here. And I remember Sterling looking out in the audience, and I made eye contact with him. Now, granted, there was only maybe a couple hundred of us at this convention. It was very, very early days for this company. But Sterling made eye contact with me, and he said, if you want to be a leader, you just have to keep going and going and going and going. And that was his point, because this commercial was about this Energizer bunny that just keeps going. And it was at that point that I went, okay, I am going to do something every single day to move my business forward. And that's what I did. I actually would take one day off a week. And I would tell my kids, we're not even going to say the U word on Sunday. We need one day off. But every other day, I would do something to move my business forward. Now, Tom told me I could talk about network marketing if I told you the truth. And I will tell you the truth about network marketing. You have got to work really, really hard. Anyone that tells you that direct sales, like you sign up and you bring in a couple people and you're going to get wealthy, they're not telling you the truth. I worked so hard, but I'll tell you what happened when I saw Sterling up there, this sort of just really wonderful, but kind of average guy. And I knew that he was the top income earner in my company. I sat there and something clicked within me. And I just went, okay, if that's the top earning distributor in this company, next year, baby, that is me. I just felt it in my bones. And the next year, the USANA convention was held in Snowbird, Utah. And that was before we had any back office information. There was no downline management reports or anything. You didn't know where you were in the company, but I knew I had sponsored or brought in as customers dozens, maybe 100 people. I mean, that year, and granted, let me tell you the truth on this. Again, Tom said, you've got to tell him the truth. Lexi was left paralyzed, so she was in a wheelchair. I could only afford to buy a couple of cassette tapes, a pamphlet or two, very few tools that, in fact, my company didn't even have a lot of tools back then, but they did have a couple of audio tapes. And so I couldn't afford to give them to people. So I literally would call people that I knew and I would say, would it be all right with you if I drop off some information I want you to take a look at? I am building a business and I think these products might be of interest to you. And of course, my friends knew what I was going through. They knew my husband had left me. They knew I had 5 kids. They knew Lexi had had a double lung transplant and that she was fighting for her life. They knew Charlie was looking at a transplant. So of course they said yes. And I think a lot of it was just out of concern for me. And they would see, they would look out their kitchen window and here I am pushing Lexi up their sidewalk in a wheelchair with a little bag. And I'd say, no, I've got to be back in 2 days to pick these up because I've got other people that want to listen to this tape. And, I actually really did sign up a lot of people who just wanted to be on the products or they would say, and I would say, you're probably buying nutritional products anyway, buy them from me. And you know what they did. And then I had friends that had heart attacks that needed these products, that needed me to make them a shake, like Tom. And I convinced him, like, you've got to be on these. You're 34 years old and you've had a heart attack. Come on. And you know what? He said, yes. People started saying yes to me. And so, yes, I did work very, very hard. The following year at the Snowbird Convention, we were all sitting there and it came time to announce the distributor of the year, which was the top earning distributor in USANA. And they called my name. And I was dumbfounded. I had no idea. Even though I'd set that intention, I couldn't track it. And I just thought, there's got to be, anyway, I remember walking up to that stage under this big tent that we had at Snowbird. By then there was maybe 1,000 or 2, I don't know, a few more than the year before. But I just had tears rolling down my cheeks. And I was just like, wow. I stood up there and looked out at this audience and I went, I'm a leader. I am a leader, and another funny story about that, about passion and conviction. Shortly after that, or I think it was actually before that, I did a little meeting in North County, San Diego, and I did it at this restaurant called Roxy. And I had invited a friend that I knew, and I asked him he said he had some friends who'd been in the network marketing industry, the direct sales industry, but their company was going out of business. It was alarm systems or something. And I said, bring them. So anyway, I did this meeting at a little restaurant in this back room. And I really fumbled. I still was not very confident in speaking, but I knew I had to do this. So anyway, I gave the presentation. I talked about the products. I showed our compensation plan, which was never my strong suit because math was just not my thing. But I knew that if you brought in a few people and helped them, the checks would start coming, So I kind of shared all this and I could see that they didn't seem too interested. There was probably 6 or 8 people there. And that my friend had brought 3 other people. And I could see them kind of looking at each other and everything. And I just thought, okay, I've got one shot here. At the end of my presentation, I stood up and I said, yeah, it was before Snowbird, because I wasn't the top distributor in the company at that time. And I stood up and I said, someone has got to be the number 1 distributor in this company, the top earning distributor. And I have decided that person is going to be me. I'm going to the top of this company. Nothing is going to stop me. I hope that you'll jump on board with me, but this train is leaving the station and I'm going to do this with or without you. These are fabulous products. Read the science, give them a try, but I'm going for this. And if you want to go with me, you can jump on board. Well, 3 of those people in that room became very, and they told me later, after the fact, Werner and Tom will probably know, Dan and Nance Christie and Dixie Moore, these people that were there that I had never met before. But they later told me This was maybe years later, after they had become very successful in our company. They said, Collette, when you gave that meeting at the Roxy restaurant, we knew you were new to this industry. They'd been in our industry much longer than I had. And, I was a novice, and they knew what they were doing. And they said, Dan said, Collette, we knew that you kind of didn't know what you were doing, but wow, when you shared your intention with us, we talked afterward and said, that girl is going places. Maybe we should jump on board. So there is a lesson for you. When you declare your intention with passion and with conviction and with gratitude for where you are, people, and many of you have heard Bob Allen, our mutual friend, Bob Allen. He said this to me too. By the way, before he got involved, but he said, Collette, when you talk to people, he said, can you imagine being on a jet airliner, on an airplane, and the pilot comes over the loudspeaker and he says, okay, folks, I hope you're buckled in. I'm going to go ahead and try to get this baby off the ground. I'm going to, push forward. I'm hoping we can lift off, He said, can you imagine how you would feel if you heard that from the captain? You want to listen to a captain that says, buckle in, folks, we are on our way. And so I took that advice to heart. And when I would share my experience, my passion about these products, about about what I felt was the science, what I knew was the science behind our products, the opportunity, because now my checks were coming in. I remember when I got my first $100 check, I sat down and cried because, and honestly, my kids have teased me about this since. When I started, I figured out I had to do meetings every week. And so every Tuesday night I would do meetings. And sometimes people would come and sometimes there would be nobody there but my own children. But they would sit on the couch and they would listen to me and I would practice my presentation. Anyway, my son, after I got my first $100 check, he said, Mom, if I had worked as hard as you did that first 6 weeks and I got a $100 check, I'd sit down and cry too. And I went, no, that's not why I cried. I cried because I put in the work and I got paid. I knew that it worked. When I got that first check and that first green pin, I knew that it worked. Okay, Tom, I'm just like, I'm saying things that aren't even on my notes. Do you have any questions or anything you want to add at this point?
I just want to add one piece and then we're going to come back for our second segment. The one thing about network marketing, and again, we believe in all kinds of side hustles and businesses, but Bob Allen gave me an audio tape. This shows how old I am. Gave me an audio tape, and this guy literally put a paper sack on his head because it was like, I'm embarrassed to tell you the truth. With network marketing, you have to enroll 100 people.
Yep.
You got to go enroll 100 people.
That's right.
And my big why was, I had these 2 special needs kids. I'd had a heart attack, and I needed to create systems to take care of these special needs kids if something happened to me, because the likelihood of having a second heart attack, the greatest chance you have a second heart attack is in the hospital. After you've had your first, the greatest time is right after that. And
I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yeah. And so I listen to this tape over and over again, and I go, because just truthfully, you can make any system work.
Right.
But the thing that I don't like about any business is that if they don't just tell you the truth was that you need to go enroll a lot of people. Now you can get in network marketing or direct sales or affiliate programs, whatever it is, and you can enroll a few people and get your products basically for free. That's a way to win. You can do a little bit more work and make enough extra money to pay for your car payment. And then work, maybe enough to pay for your house payment, and then work, and maybe make enough to be able to live on it full time. I did something different though. After listening to that tape, I said, you know what? I need to go enroll 100 people. I'll bet you the people I enroll suck. I'll bet the people I enroll suck and they're not going to do anything. I'm going to go do 200 people. Because I knew that if I could build this, and I'd watched Collette be very successful, and I failed miserably 2 times before we did it. And I'm not kidding you. I did honestly say, Collette, I'm never talking to you again if I can't make this work, because she was making it work. I wasn't. And I didn't really like all that much. And so we went to work and we started enrolling people. And I enrolled 256 people in USANA, and I had a great team. And my little team, we enrolled over 2,000 people. And
Yep.
what's interesting is that shortly after I got started, I converted the distributorship and gave it to my special needs children, and we put it in their trust. And every week for 25 plus years, a check has been automatically deposited into the special needs trust. And all this money's coming in. I didn't use it to live on. It went right into the special needs kid. It's not even in my state. I don't even have anything to do with it. And it drops right into their account. And then what do we do with it? We gave it to Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett manages.
Yeah.
We call it stock. And those special needs trusts have just grown and grown and grown because my why was so big. It just scared me to death that I had that heart problem. And I just didn't know if I was going to make it and who's going to take care of these special needs kids. And so that's why I got so aggressive with what we did. And it was Collette that really taught me the system of how to do it. And again, I love the products. And you know what? Network marketing, I would say 95%, 98% of the companies have good products.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably 10% difference in them or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but it's better than eating McDonald's all the time. Whatever you do is better than what most people do. And
right.
If you get excited about that or affiliate programs, do it. But just be aware that the truth is you have to do it a lot of time with a lot of people if you want to make a lot of money. Now, if you want to treat it like a hobby and get paid like a hobby, that's okay. Do that. Right. That's just fine. But don't have the illusion that you're going to do nothing and win. You have to work the business. And the truth is that it's worth it. We've had probably $5 million popped into my special needs kids accounts over the years because it just keeps coming in. And it was really hard. It was really hard for quite a few years. And then the point where it just started to take off. And then I had other interests. I wanted to do a lot of real estate. I wanted to do speaking. I wanted to do events. And eventually I wanted to do the foundation. And that little check keeps coming in. So we're going to end this first segment, Collette, and we're going to come back for our second segment. And we're going to continue our conversation with Collette Larsen and really how to change your life. So we'll be right back. Hang on. We'll be right back.